Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we'll be talking about quoting and paraphrasing. So when you're writing an essay, you'll always want to include things that you learned from the texts that are provided. When we're talking about the GED, HiSET, and TASC tests, they'll provide you with some information to read ahead of time and ask you to respond in an essay form. Now, a good essay response is going to include some of the things that you learned from there, whether it's a specific line and words that that person said or an idea that you want to reiterate. So you can do this by either quoting that information or paraphrasing. Now, what's the difference? Well, a quote is when you want to use someone's exact words that they said or wrote. And if you're going to do that, you always need to use quotation marks around the words that they used. Those are not your words, they're their words. And so because they are the ones that came up with that word order, that structure, you need to put the quotation marks around that in your writing. For paraphrasing, it takes an idea that you learned from someone else and you still just put it into your own words while keeping the original meaning. Now, when you change it into your own words, you no longer need to use quotation marks around it because those are not the exact words that the other person said. However, because you're still using the idea from that person, just like how you're using the same words of that person in a quote, whether you're quoting or paraphrasing, you still have to give them credit. It's still that person's idea. So make sure that you're giving credit to their work. And how can you do that? Well, there are a whole bunch of ideas from the UNSW Current Students page about introducing quotations and paraphrases. You could say the author states that, the author claims that. You could use the author's name as well. If it doesn't include an author, you may also say the article strongly argues that, the article comments that, and you can see a whole list here. So if you've been looking for some ways to give credit, to introduce information from a text, you can pause the screen here and take note of the different ways you can do that. Now, let's take a look at some examples from an original text that I might want to include in an essay and how I would make that into a quote and how I would make that into a paraphrase and how they're different from each other. So this is from the HiSET FPT 6A, which is available for free on their website. And the original text says, "Pencil towers certainly have their critics. However, many New Yorkers worry about the aesthetic impact of the building's modern architecture and excessive height on the landscape of historic neighborhoods." So looking at that original text, if I wanted to quote that, I would introduce it first. So I would say the author of the article Pencil Towers points out that, and then you can see all the exact same words that we saw in the original text, but I put quotation marks around them to indicate that those were the person's words who wrote them originally. Now, you might also notice that there are quotation marks around the word pencil towers in the beginning. That's a different rule that we're working with, but also an important one. If you have the name of an article, a short piece of writing, then you put quotation marks around it to indicate that that's the title. So we have the quotation marks there, but more importantly for what we're focusing on today are the quotation marks around the original text that we've included. So again, you can include that original text word for word in your essay. You don't want to do that for every single line of the essay. You do want to include some of your own original writing, but when there's a really exceptional quote that you like to include, you can do that using these quotation marks. Now, the paraphrase is a little different. With the paraphrase, we're taking the same idea, but making it into our own words while still giving credit to the author. So take a look at the first part there. It says, "As the author of Pencil Towers observes." So now I've given credit. I'm saying I got this from the author of this article. "Some people don't like aspects of the Pencil Towers. People in New York have concerns about the way the buildings look, especially in contrast with the smaller historical buildings around them." So I took the ideas of this original text about there being critics of the Pencil Towers, about how they were worried about the aesthetics or the way they look, about how they were worried about how they looked within a historical neighborhood, and I put those ideas into my own words. So even though it's the similar ideas, or really the same idea as what the original text says, I still give credit to the author, but I don't need those quotation marks because these are my words. Let's take a look at another example. This one says, Title IX of the Education Amendments, part of a federal law enacted by Congress on June 23, 1972, states, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So if I wanted to take this text and I wanted to quote it, I would start by introducing it and say, in the article Title IX, the author notes, so there we go, I've acknowledged what article I'm getting this from, and then another author wrote it. And you'll see that I put the quotation marks beginning after notes there around the text. Now, I do want to point out one interesting thing here, because if you look at our original text, you may see the quotation marks that are around the words no and assistance there in lines 2, 3, and 4. So that means we have a quotation within a quotation. Now, what do we do if we have double the quotation marks? Well, since we added the quotation marks around the beginning and end of this text, the part in the original text, beginning with no person and ending with assistance, I used just a single quotation mark around that. So it's a way of showing that there is a quotation within the text, but that it's separate from the quotation that we're bringing out of the full text here. So if you'll see in the quote version underneath here, before no, there's a single mark, and after assistance, there's a single mark followed by the double to end the full quote. Now, if we wanted to paraphrase, the last paraphrase here says, the author of the article Title IX notes that this 1972 law prevents any person, regardless of their sex, from being excluded from programs that are educational or that receive government funding. So again, we're taking the main core ideas from that original text and putting them into my own words so that I can paraphrase them for my writing. Now, I'm still giving credit to that article and that author because this is not my unique idea. This is something I learned from the text. So I'm putting it into that context there. But because I'm not using their exact words, I'm using my words, I don't need to include the quotation marks. Thank you so much for watching today, and good luck on your tests. We have tons more videos here on the Helms Academy YouTube channel, so you can check those out, give them a thumbs up or leave a comment, and subscribe to get all the latest updates. You can also check out the Helms Academy on Instagram and Facebook, and on our website at helmsacademy.org.